Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Ecclesias Guerriere here. That's me on the left, not on the right. and just here representing Florida State University, School of Graduate Studies, International Affairs. So today we're going to talk about the role of non-governmental organizations, or NGOs as we like to call them, in disasters. And what we're going to do is we're going to discuss several different things as it relates to NGOs. But to first do this, we have to come up with a definition that we can all use and agree on as to what exactly is an NGO. According to the Oxford Dictionary, an NGO, or nonprofit organization, is an organization that operates independently of any government, typically one whose purpose is to address a specific social or political issue. In this case, we're going to refer to NGOs as such an organization that deals with disasters. In her book, Dealing with Disaster, Sandra Schneider mentions NGOs specifically in the preface of her book. Regarding NGOs, Schneider says the following: in many of these case studies considered in this book, serious breakdowns in the system occurred precisely because non-governmental actors and elected officials intervened in the response process. Basically, what Schneider is saying is that when NGOs and other actors that aren't government agencies intervene in the disaster process, it leads to misinterpretations of whether or not a disaster recovery response is ultimately a failure or a success. What we're going to do now is focus on two specific disasters: Hurricane Katrina in August of 2005 and the earthquake in Haiti in January of 2010. We're going to look at both of these disasters and the NGOs that responded to these disasters so we can get a better idea of not only how NGOs should respond in a disaster, but more specifically how these NGOs responded during those disasters. We'll be looking at the American Red Cross, which responded to Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And we'll be looking at Doctors Without Borders, which responded to the Haitian earthquake in 2010. What I find interesting about both of these organizations is one of these organizations responded to a domestic disaster, meaning one that occurred here in the United States, and the other responded to an international disaster which occurred outside of the United States. First, we'll evaluate the American Red Cross and how they chose to respond to the disaster, which was Hurricane Katrina in 2005. According to Live Science, Hurricane Katrina was one of the deadliest hurricanes ever to hit the United States. An estimated 1,833 people died in the hurricane and the flooding that followed in late August 2005, and millions more were left homeless along the Gulf Coast and in New Orleans. Katrina was the most destructive storm ever to strike the United States and the costliest storm in U.S. history, causing over $108 billion worth of damage. According to the United States National Response Framework, the American Red Cross is a supporting agency to the mass care functions of the emergency support function. While it does not direct other NGOs, the American Red Cross takes the lead in integrating the efforts of the national NGOs that provide mass care services during response operations. What this basically means is while the American Red Cross is not considered to be an entity of the United States government, they are relied upon to provide support, things such as aid and other functions during times of disaster. And we're going to go into that right now. So during Hurricane Katrina, according to the American Red Cross website, the organization provided more than 3.8 million overnight stays in shelters in 31 states, served 68 million meals and snacks, and provided financial assistance to 1.4 million families. Basically, the Red Cross had a very sustained mission as it related to Hurricane Katrina based on the scope and the magnitude of the disaster. And their assistance as it related to Katrina spread across 31 states, across the United States, of course, and it included over 1 million families, and it lasted for several years. As you can see here, this is an example of shelters set up by the American Red Cross in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. Again, the Red Cross does not participate in search and rescue operations, but more so supporting operations such as shelters, and we'll look at some other things that the Red Cross did in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. Here you can see Red Cross volunteers stocking up on non-perishable items, food, so that it can be dispersed to those families who are in immediate need directly following Hurricane Katrina. Now again, the Red Cross has a pretty vast amount of funds, and what they typically do is they solicit donations, whether it be physical donations or financial donations, from regular folks like myself and yourself who may or may not have been affected by the actual disaster itself, so that everyday Joe Schmoes and the public at large can take an active role in helping those who need it the most. In addition to food and clothing and financial assistance, the Red Cross has clothing donation drop boxes strategically placed throughout the country. In the case of Katrina, they collected a lot of clothing from folks all over the country, and in this case all over the world, so that it could be given to those who lost their homes and all of their items. So they will collect the clothing that is amassed in these drop boxes, and it gets carried over to a main distribution center, sorted out, and eventually it makes its way to the people who are in desperate need of the clothing. Finally, something that we're very much used to is the distribution of water. And it cannot be understated just how integral the distribution of water is, especially in the immediate aftermath of a disaster. And water is not only integral and needed for victims of the disaster, it's also needed for emergency personnel, first responders, volunteers. All of these individuals need water to sustain them throughout the day, as they do the very hard work that is required to help folks recover from a disaster. Here you can see an example of how the American Red Cross breaks down their efforts on a year-by-year basis and puts it in such a way that makes it very easy to read and very easy to understand. the scope of their relief efforts to everyday individuals such as myself. So as you can see here in 2011, which doesn't relate to Hurricane Katrina, but for the purposes of understanding the Red Cross, you can see how the American Red Cross responded to large-scale disasters. You can see that they include multi-family fires, meaning when several homes, as it relates to out west in California, when several homes burn down, they consider that to be a large-scale disaster. So they responded to 45 of such incidents in the year 2011. 29 tornadoes, 27 floods, 15 hurricanes, 10 wildfires, 4 blizzards, and 1 earthquake. All in all, they opened up over 1,000 shelters, provided over 6 million meals and snacks, over 2.6 million relief items, and they were able to solicit the aid of over 27,000 disaster workers. And usually with the American Red Cross, over 90% of their workers are purely volunteers. And with that being said, that gives you an idea of how the American Red Cross responded during Hurricane Katrina. So their role was not to save lives. They left that up to first responders, emergency operators, the federal government. What the Red Cross does when they come into any situation is they're more there as a support. They're more there to help the victims in their recovery efforts. Helping the victims find housing assistance, helping the victims get in contact with their loved ones, providing temporary financial assistance, providing temporary shelter, temporary food, clothing, subsistence. These are just some of the things that the American Red Cross does as it relates to the disasters, and they stay out of the business of search and rescue or major medical aid. That's not what they do. Hopefully this explains how the American Red Cross in particular responds to large-scale disasters. Now we're going to focus on Doctors Without Borders and their approach to disaster relief as it related to the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. Now, according to their website, Doctors Without Borders, which is an international NGO, their main focus is to save the lives and ease the suffering of people caught in the crossfires or in the acute crises, thereby restoring their ability to rebuild their lives and communities. Now, unlike the American Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, they're pretty much everywhere. If it's an armed conflict, major epidemics, malnutrition, natural disasters, or basic exclusion from healthcare, Doctors Without Borders is almost everywhere. But their main focus is saving lives and easing suffering. So, on January 12, 2010, there was a 7.0 magnitude earthquake that struck the island of Haiti. Now, while it's up in the air, it's generally accepted that about 250,000 people lost their lives initially as a result of the earthquake. An additional 300,000 people were injured. 1.5 million people were displaced, meaning they were homeless. And more people remain displaced to this date. Obviously, many schools were damaged, as were hospitals and government structures. All in all, the earthquake in Haiti accounted for over $13 billion in damages that to this date has not been officially officially accounted for. But we're not going to really go into that. What we're going to go into is the response by Doctors Without Borders, what their main mission was in Haiti, and overall we'll talk about the organization. So as I mentioned, Doctors Without Borders, their main objective when they go into any disaster area is saving lives and easing suffering. The proof is kind of in the pudding, in the title of the organization, Doctors Without Borders, meaning they're doctors who go anywhere and everywhere that their medical expertise is needed. As you can see here, this is one of their trained doctors assisting an elderly gentleman who was a victim of the earthquake. Appears to have had some head injuries, but he's in good hands. Something else that Doctors Without Borders did, which I thought was pretty cool when I read up about it, was they actually set up they created an inflatable hospital, and this is really cool. I mean, if you look at this structure, they were able to treat many patients. So they found a vacant football field in Haiti, and they were able to get this structure up. I'm not sure who thought of creating this, but basically what it allows them to do is in any disaster area, they're able to quickly establish their own hospital, especially in the case of areas such as Haiti, where many of the hospitals were destroyed. So all in all, as it related to the earthquake in Haiti, Doctors Without Borders had to relocate services to other facilities, build container hospitals, work under temporary shelters, and even set up an inflatable hospital. Overall, they were able to create and manage over 19 healthcare facilities throughout Haiti, and they were also able to treat over 173,000 patients between January 12th and May 31st of 2010. So that's 5 months. Within 5 months, they were able to treat almost 250,000 people, which is incredible considering the damage to infrastructure in Haiti, the turmoil as related to there being a lack of visible government and security and safety. I think it's pretty incredible what they were able to do. So overall, when responding to Hurricane Katrina, the American Red Cross, you could say, had a easier task, being as they didn't have to go in and focus on saving lives. Maybe that's not the best thing to say, because they did have to focus on efforts, on a long-term basis. But what I mean when I say easier is there was a government there. In the case of Katrina, the local officials within the Gulf states, they were still somewhat operational, and obviously the federal government was very much involved in the process. So the individuals at the American Red Cross had the luxury of working with government officials and collaborating with them to best decide how to disperse aid and recovery efforts throughout the process. In the case of Doctors Without Borders in Haiti in 2010 after the earthquake, if you can imagine, you know, over 250,000 deaths, countless more injured, a health epidemic as related to cholera, many government officials unaccounted for, many security individuals unaccounted for. Needless to say, there was mass hysteria as it related to the collective behavior of the people. There was looting, rioting, people committing violent crimes. So you can imagine the environment that they were coming into. Also, the overall infrastructure of the country, which was not great to begin with, was further damaged as a result of the earthquake. So that's what they had to work with going into Haiti. It's not the same way. I mean, the way that they chose to do things in Haiti wouldn't be the way that they would do things if they were going into France, for instance, because the institutions there are set up better than they are in Haiti. But overall, this is the way that these two non-governmental organizations chose to respond to those specific disasters. So non-governmental organizations generally are not there to supplant or supersede the role of government, but instead serve as a support. Mainly what NGOs are great for is they allow the public at large to, they allow the public overall to participate in the recovery and in the support efforts relating to a disaster. Rather than the public sitting back and, being fed by fear and being fed by uncertainty, NGOs allow people to, feel like they're a part of the team by volunteering or donating clothes or money or food or whatever it may be. NGOs empower the public to be a partner in the support of disaster relief, and I think that actually goes against Schneider's belief that NGOs create a negative public perception. I think, based off of this, NGOs actually help, with the public perception, because it allows the public to kind of get in there, roll their sleeves up, work alongside government officials, and actually see the hard work of government officials and appreciate it. So whether it's a volunteer from UNICEF spreading awareness to children in Africa, the Salvation Army collecting donations and perishables as a result of preparing for a disaster, Human Rights Watch spreading awareness as it relates to human rights violations as a result of the negative collective behavior following disasters and preceding them. Doctors Without Borders bringing much needed medical aid to people in the furthest corners of the world. Habitat for Humanity rolling up their sleeves and rebuilding communities. The American Red Cross or the International Red Cross soliciting the help of volunteers in local communities to help cheer people up and spread awareness and start the process of rebuilding. Non-governmental organizations allow regular people, you, me, our neighbors down the street, to get active and participate in disaster relief. Whether it's people who are willing to roll up their sleeves, take a day off of work, and help someone up, or whether it's people who just want to pull out their pocketbook and give $1 or two, or go to a grocery store and buy non-perishable goods, or take the shirt off their back, or some items that they haven't worn in a while, and donate it to the local Salvation Army. NGOs overall empower the public to participate in disaster relief efforts. They're not there to take the role of government. They're just there to support.